to Greg Moran. Welcome to Voices of Elevate. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, so good to see you too, Jenna. Happy to be on here.
Yeah, where are you? Where are you on here from?
Today I am in the mountains of Portugal near Covilhã.
Lovely. What have you been doing over there?
So I just finished up a 7 day or 6 day retreat in Mafra area. Really beautiful retreat, amazing group. Just focused on yoga, breathwork, nature connection. So yeah, really powerful.
So you're in a very zen state as we receive you right now.
Yes, more or less. And then also just like taking plenty of time to rest after holding that space as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I was with you on the solstice and I accompanied you to Stonehenge and we had a fun time up there, didn't we? And then you were going to Germany, is that right?
Yeah, so solstice at Stonehenge, that was incredible, amazing. And then yeah, I went to Germany afterwards, had a couple of events down there with the co-facilitator for for this retreat. And then her and I both made our way out to Portugal for the retreat.
And then you're making your way back to the UK when?
It'll probably be around the first week of August, like August 6th or 5th or 6th, maybe?
Okay, ready for the 7th when you'll be
Yes.
joining us at Elevate.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So, uh, is it all breath work that you've been doing at all these retreats? Because that's what you're bringing to Elevate, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll be bringing breathwork journeys to Elevate. And breathwork has definitely been one of the main pieces for what I've been doing in Germany and Portugal. But um, there's also cacao ceremonies that I guide. And then particularly in Portugal, was able to share some nature connection practices, fire ceremonies, um, and different rituals to just help people connect with the elements and connect with the lands, which is something that I'm really deeply passionate about, but don't always get to offer unless it's in kind of like a larger window of time, like a retreat or something like that.
Yeah, because I didn't realize until we were talking this, at solstice that you'd actually studied nature. You're actually a scientist, aren't you? And you studied microbiology, hadn't you? So you come
Studied
from that kind of scientific background into this more spiritual, holistic route, haven't you? But I can see that your interest and connection is still with nature.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I studied geology in university and then ended up teaching marine biology.
Um,
Um, Not in like a school setting or anything like that, but in kind of outdoor education setting. And did that for many years. Really loved that. And yeah, a big part of my healing journey, I'm fairly sure we discussed last time, was healing ulcerative colitis using all natural means. And a big part of that was coming back into right relationship with food, beginning to engage in yoga and meditation to just help calm the stress and anxiety that my body was experiencing. And then cannabis oil was what healed the ulcerative colitis. And after my body was healed using the cannabis oil, I noticed that my mind was still holding on to a lot of the trauma from going through such an intense illness over those years. And even though the body was physically healthy, the mind was still trapped in those trauma responses. And so, where that led me was studying nature connection, particularly with a school in the US that focuses on indigenous practices to cultivate the nature connection. And so I ended up spending large amounts of time in the woods by myself, living in Washington State, just doing these different practices, learning about the environment there, the different animals and plants in the area, and how the whole ecosystem kind of fit together. And just spending large amounts of time out in nature allowed my mind to find that balance point again rather than kind of going on these huge emotional swings like I was experiencing at the time. So nature was what really helped me to rewire and reharmonize the nervous system after a very intense healing journey.
Amazing. Well, being in nature is just so underrated. We don't realize how disconnected we actually are. We're in our boxed houses, we get into our wheeled cars to go into other boxed rooms for work and different things like that. And most people never connect with nature. It's crazy, really. And yeah, so I love that you went on that journey, and you really do take your daily practices seriously, don't you? Particularly the breath work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The daily practices are kind of what help to instill that sense of equilibrium and almost like lay the foundation for everything else that comes in the day as well. Just taking that intentional time to really connect in deeply with myself, and then from there being able to move throughout the day while staying tethered to the core of myself.
Yeah,
Because it
because
can be
I
very
do.
easy to kind of get like swept up one way or the other,
Yeah.
to kind of like lose yourself throughout the day. So just having these practices can be a really beautiful way to tether back.
Yeah, because I start the day with a dog walk, and then I stop at this particular oak tree, and that's where I do my qigong and breath. And it's the
Mm.
same, and I haven't done it this morning because I've got the day off today, so I didn't have to get out of bed, and I thought I'm just going to lie here a bit longer, and then it's messed my whole rhythm up. Like you just feel so out of sorts, like you are just suddenly at the beck and call of life rather than you being intentionally flowing through it. It does make all the difference to how you feel in yourself. And then what you attract in for the rest of the day. If you're not in a grounded, centered place, you can often attract chaos like I did this morning with my phone not working and different things. It's because, if I was in a more zen space this morning, I could have sorted these things out in the flow, but it just became crazy. So yeah, the daily practice are a must.
Yeah, very, very underrated and very, very powerful for
And it
sure.
doesn't have to take long, does it? It doesn't have to be like, oh, I don't have time for that. You can incorporate it into something you're already doing. Like I do, I have to walk my dogs. So I'll incorporate it into that. But
Yeah,
you only have to do
definitely.
5 minutes, can't you? Yeah, but I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to you showing us some breathwork tools, um, as well as the journey that you'll be taking us on. But talk us through the different types of tools that there are, the different breathes that you'll be sharing.
Yeah, definitely. So I believe this workshop is going to be on a Saturday morning, yeah? I believe so.
I've
Uh,
got a program over
we can
there,
check
but I
the
just can't
schedule.
reach it.
But yeah, so this is I call them breath connection classes, and it's something that I developed while I was living in Zanzibar in Tanzania. Because I only had an hour time slot in the yoga studios that I was teaching at, and that's not enough time for a breathwork journey. And so I still wanted to show people just how powerful breath work can be, even if you're not going on a full journey. There's so many simple practices, pranayama techniques, different things like this that can almost instantaneously shift the energy and bring you into a very grounded um, and elevated state. And so in these breath connection classes, it's there's a number of different techniques that I can pull from for these classes. But essentially, it's an introduction to different breathing techniques that you can take with you and do throughout your day, do as a daily practice. By themselves, each practice probably takes no more than 5 to 10 minutes. And then combined together in the class format, I not only provide like the educational information about the benefits of each of the different practices, but also you get to experience the different practices and how deep they can take you, how much energy they can move, how grounded they can make you feel. So it's just a really beautiful flow of different breathing techniques and kind of like body movements and stuff to really bring you out of the head and into the body and into the heart.
But they also, support you physically, don't they? Because like your core muscles that you have, some of the breath that you have to kind of, like I when I joined your class last year, I was like, my core isn't strong enough for this. But I could see the benefit if I did it every day, how it would strengthen the core, but also the lungs, and just how you're really accessing more breath. I'm somebody, because I had asthma as a child, I've got quite a small peak flow. So I can't always get enough breath to what other people are doing. So when people are saying now hold it, and I'm like, you know, but I can see that if I practiced it on the daily, it would fix that issue with the lungs, and already I've been doing quite a lot of breath work, and I have noticed I can take more of a deep breath and things like that. So it's definitely very supportive on the physical level as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even just taking, like, it doesn't have to be a complicated breathing technique or anything. Even just taking a few conscious breaths, using the whole lung capacity, can just begin to open up the diaphragmatic muscles. Oftentimes we have, let me tilt the camera down. So the diaphragm muscles, like right underneath the rib cage here, the muscles along the ribs. Oftentimes that's very tight just due to different holding patterns from the various stresses that we may have in daily life. It could be from traumas that we've experienced a long time ago. But the diaphragm kind of holds a lot of that energy. And so over time, it can become very tight, which then makes it extremely challenging to take a full deep breath.
Mm.
And so even if it's just taking as deep of a breath as you can, over time the muscles will begin to loosen and stretch and open, and you'll find yourself just with more vitality, able to like really breathe life in, because the way that we breathe is essentially a mirror for everything else in life and also a mirror to how we're experiencing that moment. So if we're able to take full relaxed breath, that's how we're meeting the moment. If our breathing is kind of constricted or very shallow, or like there's a lot of pain in the breathing, that's indicating that there's something that's maybe asking to be looked at on the kind of like internal or psycho-emotional levels. So the breath is almost like this window into what's going on in your inner world, whether you're aware of it or not.
Yeah, because years ago I used to be quite an anxious character. I used to suffer a lot of anxiety and things, and I didn't know how to breathe into the stomach because I was always breathing from here, Um, and I think it all tied in. The breath would have tied into the anxiety, and the anxiety tied into the breath. And actually, it was when I started a yoga class about going on like 25, 30 years ago now. The teacher that I had at that time wasn't about, the leggings and the booty. She was about teaching us yoga as the philosophy. It wasn't just postures. She would teach us breath and Sanskrit prayer and everything. She was amazing. And it was even just learning the Ashtanga yoga breath, that then when I had a panic attack one evening, I just started doing that and it disappeared. And that was really, really valuable for me. And I've taught that to other
Mhm.
people. Like, if you just focus on, and why is that? It's because of the parasitic nervous system, isn't it? To breathe in through the nose.
Yeah, the parasympathetic nervous system.
So what did I say? What did I say?
You said parasitic.
Because I haven't done my qigong this morning.
But yeah, it's yeah, in large part the parasympathetic nervous system. And then it's also, when you begin to form that relationship with a specific practice, whether it's, Ashtanga, other forms of yoga, breathwork, qigong, that that can act as the tether for when you find yourself kind of coming out of a like a regulated or a grounded place. And especially if you start to notice something like an anxiety attack coming on, or you start to feel yourself really anxious, these become very powerful tools to just, again, tether back to yourself, to tether back into that practice. And this is also the power of the daily practice, is the more you practice it, the more you teach your body not only what that state feels like, but how to quickly bring yourself back into that place. So
Mm.
I love hearing that story of how the Ashtanga breath and the Ashtanga practice really allowed you to shift things when it came to the anxiety that you're experiencing.
Yeah, because when you're experiencing anxiety, you can really feel it in the chest, and you often start shallow breathing quite fast. And so to just really be mindful, and I think to be mindful on the breath also takes you out of your head, or whether, for me, anxiety was never in the head though. It was a very physical thing. Um it was always a stored energy that needed to be released, but the fear of it kind of kept it trapped. But yeah, the breath was just so valuable, as
Mm.
has been your breathwork journeys. Now, last year at Elevate, we were all in a teepee, and it was just I always wondered how I would do a breathwork journey in public, because I had done them online before, and to release in that way, to be crying, and often it's ugly crying, isn't it? It's not often it's a full kind of like howl and cry or whatever. And I'm quite an inhibited person when it comes to crying in public, or that kind of thing. And I just remember thinking, I just don't know how comfortable I would be to release like that in a public setting. But then when I was there, everybody else is having their own version of a release. And so it gives you permission to just go with it. And I actually found it way more powerful doing it in a public place than it was doing it by myself. And I think it was just the energy of everyone else. And it kind of connected us all, um, because we were all sharing this deeply powerful, um, slightly undignified experience together. And I think when you can go to those depths as a group, it's really, really special. And every breathwork journey that I've attended, I think I've done 3 of yours now. And there is that element of community as well that I really like, because you've been your most vulnerable with others, being their most vulnerable. And it's just really special. And yeah, I'm glad I got over my inhibition, and did it anyway, to experience that and realize, no, it's powerful and it's magic, and it's just a really gorgeous experience, and you just feel amazing. And it's always been so profound. um what's come up, even the last one that I did with you a few weeks ago, has healed a relationship, um that was, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just magic. Would you like to talk us through it a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jenna. Yeah, so much of what you said is um, really, really beautiful and powerful. And in particular, the hesitation that somebody might feel coming into a group space where there is that potential for deep emotions to be expressed and released. And in particular, like the catharsis and the crying and things like that, a lot of people tend to really shy away from allowing those emotions to express in, public settings. Not that the breathwork journey is just like, open to the public, but it is a setting with people that you might not necessarily know beforehand. And that can be a very vulnerable place to be. But just as you said, when you lean into that edge and you step into that space, and the space is held by somebody who can hold those emotions, um, it just allows for this really beautiful opening and release. And in doing so, can just not only instill a greater level of trust in yourself and your own process, but the fact that you're in that group setting lets you know that it's okay to be vulnerable in in a safe space like that with people who are also committed to going to those same depths. But healing also happens in community in a lot of ways. And like, yes, there's personal healing that we each have to take responsibility for and do for ourselves. But what I've come to learn over the years is that whatever healing you do solo on your journey, if you're not bringing that into community, then like, there's a lot more that's there waiting to be claimed, and it's almost like you're missing out on many of the benefits that actually come from doing healing work, is bringing that back into community and just enriching and nourishing the community with what it is that you've been able to access within yourself, what it is that um, just the gifts and the medicine and the light that each one of us hold.
I know I did so much of my healing journey as a lone wolf over a couple of decades, but the connecting with others on that vulnerable level is just next level healing. That's where it's at. If you're shying away by yourself and not indulging in community like that, you're really missing out. And actually the whole event, any events like Elevate, all of these more kind of conscious events and festivals where there's lots of healing workshops, it really connects you as a tribe over the course of the weekend, because you're all getting so vulnerable together, and it's you're really showing your true essence and your true self behind the blocks and the walls, and from the heart. And I think yeah, it's just really elevating.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel that on a deeper level, when you do bring yourself into those spaces and you allow yourself to be seen, um, those parts of you that hide away inside because they don't feel safe, they begin to learn and trust that it's okay to be seen. And that's where a lot of deep healing happens. And oftentimes, these are inner child pieces that have really hidden themselves away into corners that can be very difficult to reach within us. And so when they begin to get curious and like, oh, we're okay in this environment, like we're okay being seen in this way, we're okay being heard and sharing our truth, it just creates that space for them to come out of the shadows and just reintegrate into the totality of your human being.
Because it's actually just the walls and the masks that are very divisive. When people think that they're not likable, or if people aren't likable, it's usually because there's too much ego or walls and masks in the way that's creating this disconnect, that you do find it difficult to connect with those people or like them necessarily. But when I think if everyone just goes into that vulnerability state, it's hard not to love people. You've got someone come to say hello.
No, there's a couple flies buzzing around. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to love anybody that's in the place of true authenticity, because everybody is lovable, I feel, and we're all so individual. But when people are just authentically themselves, they're allowing themselves to be vulnerable, then everybody just feels really, really lovable. So magic happens when you just step out of that comfort zone and allow yourself to be seen. Yeah, it's wonderful. I also, because you have had quite a lot of experience with ayahuasca, and didn't you bring some into the space, or something into the space?
I didn't
Not
bring ayahuasca itself into the space, but on my altar I have
on your altar,
Seeds
yeah.
of Divine.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I'm very used to the kind of visions that I get at the end of the breath work, when you've had this kind of DMT release. But it was so different, that I actually think I connected with that spirit of the ayahuasca at the because it was, yeah, it was very interesting. I was like, that's different to what I've had before. Um, and so I wondered if, yeah, I'd picked up on that on your little sneaker, putting that on your altar.
Yeah, very possibly. Um, I mean, these plants, they carry very potent energies, as I'm sure you're aware. Like mushrooms are very similar in the way that they work energetically.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so even if you're not physically ingesting them, if you have a relationship with them, just like with the daily practice, you can always tether back to the daily practice. These plant helpers are so powerful, these plant teachers, that once you've sat with them, like there is that tether that you can always tie back into to tune into that energy, to call upon that energy. And just with the immense healing power that ayahuasca holds, that different plants that I've worked with personally, such as tobacco, the oak trees, these different plants that like hold really potent codes, they can come into the energetic grid of the space and just cultivate and facilitate the healing processes that happen. Um, yeah, so it's really magical and like really cool how like the shamanic web gets woven into
Mm.
these deeper ceremonial spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I have got quite a potent sixth sense to the communication with nature, and maybe that's why I really honed in on it, because I spend so much time by myself in the woods talking to the trees and different things. But I do feel there's a voice that I think our ancestors were probably way more in touch with. I think that we've lost that. It's like a sense, um, but there'll be a plant or something that will almost speak to me and say, I'm a medicine. I'm a medicine. And I'll be like, that's interesting. And then I'll look it up and it's like, oh God, it is a medicine. This is amazing. And that's how I learned foraging, was not because I studied it anywhere, but because the plants were talking to me. And I was like, what is that? And it was kind of reinforcing what I was hearing in a book. It's like, oh, okay, so I've got this, and I don't know if it's like a um, past life thing come through, or I had a chat with Adam Actorius yesterday, the other day, and he was talking about it not being a past life, but something happening at the same time connected to something much wider. But whatever it is, it's just this kind of sense that I've had, and it's been reinforced when I've checked the book. Um, and maybe that's why I could tap into that ayahuasca on the on the altar.
Yeah, very
It's like, oh, that's interesting. What's she
eh,
saying?
yeah, very possibly. Yeah, and yeah, something that I was gonna say with you sharing that is before all these scientific instruments were invented, how did anybody know about any of the plants and the healing properties
What
that they
to
could
eat, how to
possess? It
heal.
was
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. It's people who spent large amounts of time connecting with nature and like
Mm.
beginning to tune into the energies of these different plants, and the plants literally beginning to communicate.
Just like all animals do.
Hmm.
We're forgetting, like, people kind of ignore the fact that they have this relationship. They know what they can eat, they know what they shouldn't eat. It's they know what to have for medicine as well. Like dogs know to eat greens when they have an upset stomach and things like that. That they know. Horses know. So why wouldn't we?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not any hit like crazy woo woo stuff. It's our instincts, and we've lost connection with that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that as we spend more time in nature, as an individual immerses himself in the natural world away from the artificial frequencies of like 5G and Wi-Fi signals and fluorescent
Mm.
lighting and all of that, and they actually get their bare feet on the earth, they begin to remember that like they are nature. We're not separate from nature. And as they begin to reattune their bioelectro field to that of the earth's or the forest or whatever natural landscape they're in, the channels of communication open back up between you and that natural environment. And something that indigenous cultures from around the world talk about is the songs of the plants, the songs of the rocks, the
Mm,
voice of the wind, like all of these different things that science has kind of written off as anthropomorphizing and just giving these things traits of consciousness because of our own insecurities. But in my own experience, they do have voices, they do have their own individual consciousness. And when
mm.
we
They all
put
have their
aside,
own individual like vibration and frequency, you
yeah,
know.
and when humanity puts aside its own arrogance that we're the top of the food chain and nothing else has consciousness like us, then it puts us in a position to be humble, to learn from these beings that live in harmony with the natural world rather than destroying it.
Mm,
So yeah, plant intelligence is really, really powerful. And I love that in your foraging journey, as you go deeper into that, the plants are beginning to communicate with you and share with you like which ones are beneficial for specific instances. If you have something going on health-wise, this one begins to call out to you. Like that's the way that the ancients learned about the environments and the way that they developed their medicines ultimately.
it was really lovely listening to you talk about that because as you were talking about that, I've been smiled at by these beauties.
Amazing.
These lovely sunflowers were sort of going, yes, yes, we full of sunshine they are. They just, lift the spirit, don't they, sunflowers? Yeah. So what else do you have coming up?
So here in Portugal, we'll just have a probably an event in another week and a half. And then yeah, I'll be making my way up to the UK. I'm still in the process of maybe putting together a couple of events in the UK.
Mhm.
One will likely be up in Shrewsbury with a good friend of ours, Katie,
Oh, excellent.
Katie Joy. And then yeah, it's just seeing if anything wants to come together around the Salisbury Andover area,
Mhm.
either before or after Elevate. Um, yeah, and then of course the Elevate Festival, which I'm super excited about. It's an amazing community that you've brought together. And I know that this year, yeah, people are just going to be ready to connect deeper, to go deeper within themselves, and especially with it being so close to Stonehenge, it feels like the energy is going to be very potent.
I know last year we were tapping into the Glastonbury ley lines, and now we'll be on Stonehenge. And we walked around the site, didn't we, when you visited? And there's just lovely walks as well, isn't there? If people want to just take time out of, from and a little river, wasn't there? It was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
beautiful, and an old church, and there were so many things that we discovered, and the cows.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some lovely walks. I think we might be having a foraging walk actually. Just waiting for them to confirm. But yeah, it's just a really beautiful spot, and yeah, potent energies around that area. So
Yeah.
we're really looking forward to that. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so if people want to connect more with breathwork or like find out more about the work that I do, they can find me on Instagram at Eagle Oak Alchemy. And then my website is eagleoakalchemy.com. So those would be the two places where yeah, you can find out about offerings, upcoming retreats and events, and yeah, the different programs that I run throughout the year.
And you do one-to-one sessions as well, don't you? You work with people on a one-to-one.
Yeah, one-to-one sessions for breath work. Also, I have programs that go deeper into these nature connection and these shamanic practices. Breath work is incorporated into that. And then also work with people one-on-one who have more chronic illnesses or diseases, digestive issues, stuff like that, with cannabis oil to facilitate deep healing with just the entire body, because that's really what made the most impact in my own healing journey was the cannabis oil. So that's also something that I am offering as well as cannabis oil guidance with that. The
If
dogs are
someone,
happy about that.
I think someone might have walked past my house. But I think it's the postman actually. He was sat there good as gold. I normally lock them in another room when I'm doing this, but they all look so comfy. I thought, oh, they'll be fine. They're old dogs now. But yeah, the postman had to come at that time.
Yeah.
They're still guard dogs, letting me know. Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
amazing, Greg. Well, have a wonderful time in Portugal, and I really look forward to seeing you in just a few weeks.
I know. I'm excited, Jenna.
Oh, lots of love.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.